This is for you who lost your
What I want that quiet riot to be about is that we are recapturing the dream. That's what we need to do. We have to recapture the dream.
You can have all the skills and the abilities. You can have people all around you saying you can, you can, you can. But until you give yourself permission, it won't matter. Your success, I mean, there's so much out there for you, and I'm here to help you get there. Welcome back to our exploration of The Emperor's New Clothes. Stop, wait, if you have not watched the first part, go back and watch the first part, because the second part is going to be a little bit confusing. I don't want you to come in on the middle of the conversation. But anyway, welcome back for those of you who are continuing on. Again, if you have not watched the first, click on any part of the screen. It'll take you back to part one. But enjoy. Okay, and that other kind of person took on that mentality of, you know, stay focused, be about the business. You don't have time for this. And so that was my journey of owning my own business and, you know, and all the things that I did. It was always focus, focus, focus.
What about degrees?
Oh, let's not even talk about that. I have enough degrees.
And so again,
Talk about being, I mean, again, I had to, on paper, I had to make
Validate
sure that
yourself.
I validated myself, because that's what our society conditioned us to believe, that if you were really about anything, if you were of sophistication and intelligence, you had to have certain degrees. If you were going to, how dare you come and think you're going to tell me about my life? If you're going to say that something's wrong with you, Michael, then I needed to have a degree in order to be able to say that. I could not just come to you with my experience and say, listen, it takes one to know one. I think you broke it. So we go from one extreme to the next. So it's certainly, I think I like what you said when you said we have to take away the gender talk and come to a soul conversation, because it is that.
and what's amazing is how it all ties into everything that we've just talked about is in that story.
I know.
Isn't that amazing?
I know, that's what I'm saying. I think
everything we've talked about is actually in this story.
And I think that if people go back and read it and think about the characters, how we redefine the characters in our lives.
But the challenge, here's the real challenge that most people aren't willing to do,
What? Is to do the self-work.
is to identify themselves in each character.
Yeah.
See, that's the hard part. Am I going to be courageous enough? Am I willing to look at how I show up as the emperor?
And I think that's what was important for me, is that as I wrote out the different characters and brought them into perspective nowadays, I was like, oh, I played each one of those roles.
So-
I've been the enabler, not just to other people, but myself.
Sure.
You know, I've betrayed myself by enabling my madness through cognitive dissonance. You know, I'll convince myself that, oh, you might as well go ahead and do this because. And so we get caught up in that. So I've played the role, you know, as the enabler. I've also, nobody's listening, I played the role as the con person. And I played that role as a con person, not from the standpoint, well, it was about a manipulation, because I played the victim. And in being the victim, it's a con.
Yeah.
Because I go in and I tap into people's emotions of sympathy. Not empathy, because empathy calls me into accountability.
Right.
But I played on people's sympathy. And I'd always have, I call it in my book, somebody done me wrong songs. Oh, you talk about, and then I'd have my own pity parties, and I validated and justified the benefit of being the victim, because it did get people to do and give me things. I did play this, you know, the pitiful, you know, victim or prey. Everybody's picking on me. God hates me, which comes back to the whole conversation that I had in my book. I know, I'm gonna just be honest, some people read that and they think, oh my God, she really, you know, faced off with God like that. But nonetheless, I got to a place where being the victim I found to be beneficial. So I was the con person at that time. So going back to what you said, yes, it is very important that are we courageous enough to see ourselves in every one of those roles.
Yeah, and I never thought about it this way, but as you were sharing that, and I thought, man, where have I played the con? And I thought about that, and it's come to me. And where I've played the comment is in relationships.
Oh.
And how I played the comment is I always put on this facade of this really nice guy. Okay? Really nice guy. And so everybody likes a nice guy. So in essence, as the story goes, I was pretending to be something that I was actually. You hear that? I was pretending to be something that I was.
Really?
So really, I was really a nice guy, but in that inauthentic space, it was based on shame and fear.
Oh, wow.
You get that?
Oh, yeah.
You get that?
Oh, don't
So,
even go there.
okay, so for me, as you were saying, I said, Connie. And that's why back then I had such difficulty creating intimate relationships. Because I was conning people by pretending to be something.
Which takes me into this thing of the whole mentality of fake it until you make it mentality. Oh, yeah, you know what? That just takes me to a whole other level because, like you said, here's the thing. You were, in fact, a nice guy. But the circle and the conditioning was a man.
Is elusive. He doesn't really get into real relationships. He has as many as he can. And being the nice guy in the barber shop would call you the punk.
Right. See, because I talked about the 5 illusions of manhood.
Yeah, I wanted to get back to that too.
The second illusion of manhood is that to be a man, you must use sexual conquest as a gauge for manhood.
Yeah. Well.
See, that's the role we fall into.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting because I went to a seminar once and this lady said something that, you know how you have one of those,
Yeah.
yeah, this lady,
V8 moments.
yeah, this lady said something that just, when she said it, it just resonated so deeply with me. She said, it's amazing about you people from Texas.
Ears perked up.
I go, what? She goes, the amazing thing about people from Texas is that they pretend to be who they really are.
Wow.
And when she said it, it was just like, whoa.
That child, having that child moment.
Yeah,
Having
I was like,
that child moment.
Oh my God.
So, and did she really know you?
No. And she
Again, like I
wasn't
said.
speaking- and she wasn't speaking directly to me. She was, there were 200 people in the room. But
Wow.
when she said it, it hit me right here.
Right, because you knew that was your truth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pretending.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
oh my gosh. And then all of a sudden the mask started coming off.
But that goes back to, like I said, the whole fake it till you make it kind of thing. Why put that much energy in faking when you already are that person
Yeah.
and just embrace the journey of personal growth and development? I got to that place in my life. People were trying to push me to, Penny, go ahead and do this and go ahead. But I realized in that moment, my child stepped up and said, listen, stop and mature a little bit in your message. What is it that you really want to talk to people about? How do you really want to show up in their lives? How do you want to influence them? Instead of just going full force into there and stumbling, I'll fake it until I make it. Well, the sad part about it, like she did, she realizes people know. Many times people know you're
Absolutely.
faking.
Absolutely.
And the sad part about it is they also know that the greater you was already there.
And see, and that's the downside of positive thinking. Now, I'm a positive thinker. I believe in positive thinking, but positive thinking can also be a form of denial.
Okay.
A huge form of denial. And here, I'll give you an example. Because I bought into that idea, this positive thinking thing, then everything
I'm grinning because I've been there, done that.
yeah, everything that I saw, I was like, okay, well, God has this in store for me, but it's good because God is good, blah, blah, blah. So I had this whole positive mental thing down.
Yeah.
And so during this period of my life, I had gone through a divorce, bankruptcy, foreclosure, lost everything. Didn't have a place to stay, was sleeping on my friend's floor. This friend of mine happened to be just one of these gifts in my life who just shifted how I saw the world. And one day I came to her and I said, she asked me, she said, Michael, how are things going? And my automatic defense mechanism, oh, everything's great. I'm positive, everything's great. And she looked at me, she says, no, Michael, really? No. She said, stop.
Just stop.
She said, stop. How are things really going for you right now? And the way she said it and the person that she was allowed me to drop
Right. The facade.
drop the pretending, And all of a sudden, I allowed myself to feel the sadness, the anger, the frustration, the things that positive thinking says you aren't supposed to feel because you're supposed to be positive all the time.
Right, right.
But when she gave me the space, when she created the space for me to surrender.
See, and that goes back when you said that, I instantly said she gave you permission, you know, that you couldn't give yourself.
She
Yeah.
allowed me to surrender. That's a huge piece because when we think of surrender, we think of something negative as giving up.
Right, right.
But surrender, in my experience, is the ability to just let go.
And that takes me to even the point of, even when you start looking at the emperor in this story, he got to a place where he had an out. He had an out.
Right.
There was an exit available for him to say, you know, oh my goodness, and then really begin to deal with it. But going back to what you're saying, I'm going to ask you, why didn't you go ahead and own those feelings? Why were you protecting them or staying in that place?
But that's part of the mask I had been wearing for so long. See, I had been pretending for so long.
That you just bought into it.
Yeah, I had done all these motivational workshops and all these things that say, you know, you're supposed to do this, and everything's going to be great. So you can't be a positive influence in the world if you don't have it all together.
Right.
See, we buy into that, especially as speakers and writers.
Right. Oh,
You know,
definitely.
how we're going to coach someone if we don't have it all together?
And that was one of the things that I wanted to do, is bring total truth to this whole dialogue and the work that I do. That's why I'm saying this video series being the journey towards self-permission, the discoveries along the way, is to be honest, to be openly honest, that people realize, yeah, you're going to run into this.
Yeah.
And the faster you admit, I'm right here, I'm scared, I'm afraid, then it seems to really, the storm calms down and you can honestly now deal with it. But because we use these coping mechanisms that we think are good, and they're really not. And so again, the denial is one of those coping mechanisms. And I can guarantee you, and I know when I finally opened up and began to really accept what was going on in my life, it was gut-wrenching painful.
Absolutely. That's why we reject it. That's why we deny it. We don't want to feel that.
And that's what I want to get at. What were you at that moment that she gave you permission to go to that space?
I was in so much pain. I was in so much pain. She opened the door to allow me to feel it.
And all the things that you thought were going to be, that you feared by going into that space, did it happen?
The thing that we fear the most is that people are going to reject us and not love us.
Absolutely. You know,
That's why we have the walls up in the first place.
Yes.
So here's a person that I absolutely cared about, who loved me unconditionally, could see right through my BS. She could see right through my BS, and she called me on it. And she said, Michael, no.
But those are the same people we get angry at.
Exactly.
Yeah, we go off on those kind of people.
But there comes a point.
You don't know me.
There comes a point in our lives when the pain is too great and we don't have a choice anymore.
Yeah.
For me, that was that moment. And it was, I can't even put into words the freedom.
Yeah.
That's the best word that describes it.
Oh, yeah.
Freedom.
I want to
that
say.
I felt as I sat there and cried for 30 minutes.
Oh, don't even listen.
Okay.
And I can freely. I have more crying moments than anybody. That's my go-to. It's sort of like a pressure releaser valve. Just sometimes if I just let a couple of tears, okay, I can take it a little bit
Okay,
more.
you like movies, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll cry in a minute in a
You ever
movie.
see Good Will Hunting?
Oh yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Remember the scene where Matt Damon and Robin Williams are talking, and Robin Williams keeps saying, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. And Matt Damon's got his walls up, and he's like, don't go there. Don't go there. He just kept saying,
Yeah.
it wasn't your fault. And then finally he broke. He surrendered.
Right. Right.
He allowed himself to feel. That was the exact same experience I had with my friend. Because when she looked me dead in the eye and told me what's really going on, just let go. And when I let go, she grabbed me and she embraced me. And I could feel how much she loved me.
And then you married her.
And no. No. No.
Okay.
We're not married. I absolutely, she's one of the closest friends that I have. But what she did was she created the space, and that's the challenge. She created the space where I felt comfortable enough to surrender,
Right.
to let go,
And
to
we
feel.
have that opportunity every day in our lives to create that space for ourselves, and we don't. And it's all because we don't want to feel that pain. I remember when I got into that space, and you're right, it was gut wrenching. I'm talking about you know that cry where you cry so hard you can't even breathe, you know.
And our fear is that pain's not going to stop.
Right, and that's
See,
what I'm saying.
That's what scares us.
That's what I'm
Like,
saying.
If I go that deeply, how am I going to turn it
I'll
off?
be lost in it.
Yeah,
I'll be lost in it.
Yeah.
You know,
And
and that's what a lot of us don't want to go to.
Exactly.
And I don't know, but I got lost in it. I mean, I got lost in it for about 45 minutes. I was crying, and I was in a ball on the floor because the pain came from here. And like you said, the freedom. And it was almost like I was 10 pounds. You want to lose some weight, ladies? I'm just going to be honest. You want to lose some weight, grow your hair back. Come on. I'm talking just let it go. And get in that moment where it just flows.
It's interesting because the friend that I'm talking about, she happened to be a heavyset woman, kind of heavyset. And it was as if she knew exactly what I needed in that moment, because when she grabbed me in a way that I couldn't move. I mean, she was literally holding me.
Right.
Because if she would have let me go, I probably would have backed up and
ran.
And just put my wall back up.
Right.
But she held me firmly, and she said, "Michael, just let it go. Just let it go." And she was whispering in my ear, "Just let it go." And I started crying into her shoulder. I mean, and then it just started.
But let me say this, because I know somebody out there is going to try this. Listen, the person has to be ready. They have to be.
Oh, yeah.
I think that you were already on that banana peel. You just didn't
Yeah.
know it.
You
one foot up in the air.
Yeah, you can't intellectualize this.
No, you cannot. You have to be. Yeah, because
You
if
can't
you're
try to figure this
right,
out.
if
You
you're
can't
trying
say,
to
"You know
force
what?"
that moment to happen,
Yeah, it
it's
won't
not going to
happen.
happen
It
because it's
doesn't happen.
unauthentic.
Yeah, it doesn't happen.
And it just it becomes tragic.
Yeah, so-
And then the person really does hate you or whatever.
And you have to remember also that I had been on this journey for a while.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. You were already
Yeah,
the
yeah.
well was already primed.
Absolutely.
One
Wow.
foot in the air, the other's on the banana peel.
It's
So yeah,
one of those divine moments.
Absolutely. And I think that you have to.
Surrendered emotionally.
Yeah, you have to be able to. And then once you realize, wait a minute, hey, that wasn't that bad. Matter of fact, I feel a little bit free.
Yeah.
And then you go back. Now it's your job to begin to manage those emotions and use them for the benefits they were given to you in the first place.
Well, this is what I believe.
Okay. But I want you also to go back to those. You got 3 more other
the 5
things,
illusions.
of the 5
Okay.
illusions that you
But
got to.
Here's what I believe. As a human being, what we want more than anything is freedom.
Yeah.
We think it's the house, the cars, the stuff, because we think those things will bring us freedom. True freedom, authentic freedom, only comes from emotion, from the heart.
I agree. You know what? I always tell people, I think we get so caught up in the materialistic gain of success
Sure.
that we don't really realize what we're missing is the emotional intimacy of it.
Everything we do to try to experience a feeling.
That's true. And I tell people that.
Everything we do.
Our emotion drives everything we do, and they don't believe it.
Yeah,
They really
everything
don't
we
believe
do.
that.
And you can basically put it into 2 categories. We try to do something that makes us feel good, or we try not to do something that we think is going to make us feel bad. Those 2 things drive our behavior.
Right.
It's either moving towards something or moving away from something.
Right.
Okay? The key to freedom is moving towards the feeling, the heart, because that's where the freedom really is.
But I think it's important for us to make sure, and of course, once they stay with the series of the journey towards giving myself permission, even checking out your website, it's important that they understand that we're not just saying go out there and just be an emotional mess.
Yeah.
emotions, it's a management process. It is a being honest and self-aware. So it's not going out here because there is such a thing as being emotionally unhealthy.
Absolutely.
So we have to make sure, and that's why I talk about people's emotional attachments. What are your emotional attachments? Know what those those triggers for those attachments are. Know what your emotional vulnerabilities are, because that's where the con men and women get you at. That's where your ego, takes center stage and continues to run the show. So I think we have to also make sure people understand that it's not emotions, it's a greater sense of responsibility.
So let me do this, and I want you to think about this for
Okay.
the audience as they're listening. There is a slight distinction to be made between feelings and emotions.
Okay, there is
Okay,
a very slight one.
And here's my interpretation of it. Feelings are the initial energies
Right.
that we feel in our bodies.
that we
Four
actually
primary.
right.
Four primary: mad, glad, sad, and afraid.
Right,
Four
absolutely.
primary feelings. Emotions are the emoting, are the expression of those feelings.
Right.
The key is to recognize and identify those four key feelings.
And go further than that, not just recognize, but also what's driving it. Okay? The feeling is there, but what was the trigger? That's what I
Right.
mean by what is that emotional trigger? Okay? Because
Right.
now those emotions are going to, the feeling happens, okay? And it's usually in the mind, thought process, beliefs, expectations and perceptions of things. Then those emotions begin to express and do their work, okay? Now, again, you can either look at it from a standpoint of, I can do this in a successful way that's going to be of my highest good in this situation as well, or I can allow myself, if your emotions are unhealthy and you're filtering it through years of being conditioned to fear, to doubt yourself, to not feel that you're worthy. Now that filter, that processing, the expression is going to come through a bad filter.
So let's put this out there for people who have not done any emotional work. Because what I try to do, especially from a male perspective, is you have to start at the beginning
Right.
to help them gain an understanding of because this can be really confusing and difficult to grasp because it's not intellectual. So
Right, absolutely,
I like
absolutely.
using the story. So for me personally, when you start talking about emotions, as a result of a very traumatic childhood, which I won't go into detail, but I mean extreme abuse, for me, at a very early age, I cut off, disconnected from my emotions. That's very common in abusive situations.
We cut off.
It's a way of
Absolutely.
surviving.
Absolutely.
It's a way of
Absolutely.
surviving.
Absolutely.
So for people who are watching this and they're curious about this whole emotional thing, because our society doesn't support us in
And it doesn't.
dealing with inner work,
Yeah.
emotional stuff. Once again, especially from a male perspective. So for all the men who are watching this, my hope is that you will be open to the idea that if you remember really traumatic experiences in your life and you have not addressed them,
Yeah.
there's a very good chance that those emotions or those unhealed emotions are driving your life and you don't even
Oh
know.
my God. Yes.
You don't even know.
And because we don't, and here's what we'll do. The past is the past.
Exactly.
Leave the past in the
I'm
past.
fine.
Yeah.
I made it through. See, we justify and rationalize in our little heads.
Yeah.
I did that for years. But there comes a point where you have to change. When you look at your inability to create great relationships, you look at the patterns. See, for me, I noticed a pattern in my relationships. That pattern was driven by something that I needed to figure out if I ever wanted to create a healthy relationship. So I'll give you the origins of my emotional dysfunction, okay? When I was 6 years old, my mom had 6 kids, single mom. I had a sister who got really sick. And she was in the hospital and had all these surgeries and so forth. So my mom took me to live with my dad while she was going through all of this stuff with my sister. Now, to the rational mind, we look at a child and we see, okay, well, she took him to live with his father, so what's the big deal?
Right, right.
Well, in my case, my mom was God as a child. I love my mom in ways I can't even put into words. I was that attached to my mom. So when she took me to live with my dad, who I actually didn't really know,
Right.
okay, here's the key. I really didn't know him, had no connection with him. So in essence, she was taking me to live with a stranger.
Right. Okay.
Now, in that experience, it set everything in motion for me on an emotional level, because here's what it's called. Therapists will call it abandonment issues.
Yeah.
So as a child, 6 years old, taken away from the person who I absolutely love more than anything, put in an environment of people who I don't know, created the idea in my little head that people who love you leave you. That set everything in motion.
Set the tone for
me.
the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Until you woke up.
It wasn't until I started doing the work,
Right.
the emotional healing of that separation from my mom and all my abandonment issues and all the things that we don't want to talk about. It wasn't until I dealt with those things that I could be free.
But you know, it's amazing to me, and I shouldn't say it's amazing because I did it for so many years myself. Like you said, it starts early when you start the emotional detachment. And mine, I talk about in my book how early it started, and it was because I was shielding myself from a very abusive environment. But again, it goes back to all the time. The crazy thing was that I was being successful. You know, in the jobs that I was getting, the education, owning my own business, having a radio talk show. So basically, you could see there was a trail of success.
Sure.
But it wasn't until years later that I realized my motivation for getting those things was absolutely wrong, because it was motivated by I'm a prove to you. Because I was really covering up the unworthiness I felt inside.
Right.
So
There's the key.
my way of combating the unworthiness that I felt inside
By being
was
successful.
to cover it up with all these successes and degrees and certificates and all this other stuff. And so I never really wanted to go back in there and say, you know, I had to face these feelings of being told that you're a nobody and you're always going to be a nobody. I didn't want to deal with all of that. Okay, so there was moments that I just had to, that moment of clarity, sobriety, that I woke up and said, wow, this is serious. And I had to do something about it. And in those moments of 45 minutes of being balled on the floor, crying, and feeling that pain, truly feeling that pain, and knowing that once I let it go, it was gone. It was gone. It was gone. You know. So that was free. That was freedom at that moment. Yeah.
And so once again, for those who are watching this, I do want to put out, we live in a instant gratification society.
Yes,
and we've
yes.
got a lot of experts that, you know, claim to have these quick fixes. And I don't believe life works that way.
Oh,
This,
I know it doesn't.
this emotional work that we're talking about,
Right.
to me, is a process.
And it's a lifestyle. It's you know, and
it's a process. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah, like that. You've got to really get into it. And one of the things I tell people all the time, the title of my book, Giving Myself Permission, and I say now, it's not just a title, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's something that you've got to recognize and do almost daily, almost in moments. Every moment you have to deal with that. But I want to go back to something you said too, because this fits into what I'm saying now, is that being able to, making sure that you surround yourself with the right people. At the moment that you broke and that woman held you in that space and didn't allow you to run from that space in that moment, we have to have those kinds of people around us. And it's so important.
Sure.
It is so important. So when we begin the journey of our self-work, we have to make sure that we also have an environment that supports it.
Oh, absolutely. That's critical. Because I believe, this is, again, my belief, is that true healing truly comes when you're face to face, heart to heart with another human being. Nothing expedites the healing process as quickly as my ability and willingness to share my soul with someone else. You can sit at home and read every book in the
But you also
library.
have to be, again, you have to be the right people. Oh my gosh.
You got to have the right people, but you have to understand this process that we're talking about. And because I did this for years, if I just read the right book,
Oh,
I'll figure it out.
I did that too. If I read the right book,
just
if I get
read
in the
the
right
right-
church,
Yeah.
if I hear the right sermon,
Yeah.
don't
The truth
stop.
is, healing comes from. John Bradshaw, you know John Bradshaw? Said something that's profound to me. He said this: in order to truly heal, you have to create an interpersonal bridge with another person.
Wow.
Because that bridge.
And that's scary.
Yeah,
That's scary
absolutely.
because most of us are thinking, if I leave myself open to be that vulnerable with another individual, my past has told me I'll be taken advantage of.
Exactly. And so we cut that bridge off.
Yeah.
We
yeah.
don't allow that connection. But the true healing comes from that connection.
And what we don't realize, I had a person, and I have to say that sometimes the truth comes from the person that you really don't like. And when they
Nothing but
come,
teachers.
right, and when they come from somebody you don't like, you're like, oh, I can't stand you anyway. But that was truth. You told the truth, but I can't stand you still. But he said that, because I was talking about, well, I'm going to be this person. I'm going to get myself together in this way, and I'm going to do this before I meet that special person in my life. And he said to me, Penny, sometimes it's in meeting that special person that they get you to that place. So you have to do the work together. And I was like, oh, snap. I can't stand you, but I like that. That might have been some truth
Yeah,
there.
because I played that game.
Yeah.
If I get my life in order, if I
Yeah.
have everything just right, then I'll attract this perfect
Right,
person to me.
right. And sometimes it's that person that becomes the sharpening of your saw. So in that intimacy, that relationship of, number one, allowing each other to be and to sharpen each other, then you become that person that you want to.
Well, see, one of the things that I do, and I'm actually putting together a program that's called Relationships as a Spiritual Journey. Because it is my belief that there is nothing on this planet that can support you in healing as quickly as intimate relationships.
Oh, they say that. That's science. That's medical.
Yeah,
They
so-
say that people live longer when they're in,
But-
successful
but-
relationships
but
and
here- but
marriages.
Here's what I mean by that, though. If you're engaging in a relationship as a spiritual path, then you recognize that the person you're in relationship with is simply a mirror of you.
Don't say that.
Ah.
Because I made some
Now,
not so good choices. So,
when you and
stop.
and that's
That
the-
might not.
that's-
I have to think about that
that's
because I
the
made
am-
some.
That's the amazing things about committed relationships, is that a relationship isn't about the other person ever. It's about you.
And that's really true. That's really true. When you start really,
That's deep.
really, yeah. I mean, that's
If you're willing
really,
to
really
go
true.
there, that's profound.
But stop. To say that, that's, oh man, to say that some of the choices that I've made in relationships was a mirror of myself, that's not a good, I need to go back and visit that. What space was I in at that moment? Because sometimes, you know how it is, we tell people, I don't know what I was thinking, why did I get into that kind of relationship? And we never realize we blame it on the other person.
Absolutely.
We'll say that person was crazy, or my grandkid says ratchet or something like that, they say. But we think it's them. What was going on in my head that, now that statement makes sense. What was going on in my head when I chose that particular person
That's
to be
why
with?
You chose that person based on what was going on in your
Right. So now that gives a whole nother perspective on this thing. I now have to go back and visit. Wow, you thought it was that person, but no, it was you. What was really going on with you?
Yeah.
Before
we jump to the next thing, let me go ahead and get these other three.
Okay, other three
out of my head
illusions.
real
Okay,
quickly.
okay.
Because they actually apply to women.
Oh,
They were targeted to men, but they apply to women. Number one, we talked about the first illusion is to be a man, you must be non-emotional and disconnected. Number two, to be a man, you must use sexual conquest as a gauge for manhood. Number three, to be a man, you must have money and material possessions. Number four, to be a man, you must have titles, positions, and power. And number 5, to be a man, you must constantly compete with and try to outdo other men. Those 5 illusions have been perpetuated throughout our society since the beginning of time. And it isn't until men wake up from those 5 simple illusions that they can truly discover who they really are.
So let's stop at how do those last 3? How's that involve us? Because you guys are trying to do that to impress us.
Okay, so men think.
I'm gonna call this on the carpet.
Okay, men think from our little perception of what it means to be a man is that to be men we have to have stuff. For example, think about the first time you go on a date with a guy. What does he normally do?
Well, I expect him to pay for the meal. I teach my son that.
Okay, so here's the thing. We've created all these illusions about what men are supposed to do. So what do? We try to impress women with our stuff, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to take you to the nicest restaurant. We're going to try to look the best that we can. We're going to front and perpetrate, as the young folks say. We do all these things to say, if you don't like me, I know you'll like my stuff.
Oh, wow. And so that way I'm now manipulating you, because if at least I ain't got nothing going on, my stuff does.
From a male perspective, see, we aren't that concerned about what's going on with you, because from a male perspective, the only thing we're really worried about is how are you going to look on my arm?
Yeah.
Think about this.
Okay, I'm thinking.
From a male perspective, one of the things that we think.
Listen, some of these men are gonna be mad. Listen, he's saying this. I am not.
No, this is true. As men, we're conditioned to believe that we're supposed to marry the supermodel.
And that stresses women like myself. That stresses us, right? And then I realize that after a while, age is going to happen, and so because even now I look at some of these women that they're twisting around with their nice little shapes, and I'm like, that's okay, sweetie girl, because guess what? Age is coming. So, but that is stressful for the average woman, because
but it's stressful for the guys, and we don't even know we're stressed out because we're in denial. We're trapped in these illusions, thinking that in order for me to find the right woman for me,
she's got to look like this.
She's got to look like this. Now, here's the real challenge.
Otherwise, the dudes at the barbershop is gonna say, "Man, what was that you got?"
Okay, now be honest with me. Be completely honest with me. What would you do if a guy asked you out and said, "Let's go to Pizza Hut for dinner"?
To be honest, I would think that was quaint. But you have to. Here's the thing. Stop, because I'm older now. Now, let me take me back about.
Go back a few years.
Take me back about.
Ask yourself, what
if you took me back 20 years, I'd be like, dude, are you serious?
Exactly.
Okay, but now, I mean, literally, I would think that was so cute, that you would take me to Pizza Hut. But you better come with your game. You better have a conversation, because if I can't have a nice dinner and ambiance, you have to, come correct.
But there's the trap. Most men think that what we're supposed to do is to impress you with our stuff, things outside of us, and that's how we get you to come into a relationship with us. Mm-hmm. Versus showing up as who we really are, not worried about what you're thinking about the stuff that I have. And here's a perfect example.
Okay.
And the reason that I use Pizza Hut as an example is because my wife, guess where I took on our first date?
Pizza Hut?
Exactly.
And what did she say?
She said she thought this is actually what she thought. She thought that I was taking her to Pizza Hut because I was pretending to be something. She thought I actually had a fancy apartment somewhere else.
And you were pretending to be broke.
And I was pretending to be broke, and I wanted to see if she would go out with me if I didn't have any money. That's what she thought.
But that was the truth. You were broke.
I was broke. I was flat broke. I was completely broke. But here's the thing. I had enough confidence in myself that I said, if she has a problem going to Pizza Hut with me, she's probably not the type of woman I want to go out with anyway.
Right, that's true.
If it doesn't work out, if she says
at least I only spent $20.
Yeah, well,
oh
but
my!
Here's the thing. But here's the thing. I'm gonna be completely transparent with you here. See, number one, I love pizza.
Okay.
Okay. But number two, when my wife and I first met, you got to remember, I've been doing this work for a while. Mm-hmm. So I'm completely comfortable with who I am as a person. No pretenses, no pretending. This is who I am. when my wife went on our first date, I remember telling her, I said, okay, here's the deal. I wasn't really looking for a relationship per se, but I was open. But I said, let's just go out and let's talk about it. So I asked my wife, I said, so tell me this. What are you looking for in a relationship? Now, you have to know my wife to really appreciate this, but this was so cute. This is what she said. I ain't looking for no relationship. I'm looking for a husband.
Well, I call that just getting right to the point.
I almost died laughing. And she said, and I joke about it, but she said, look, and she was real honest.
But you know what? I'm
said,
laughing because somebody asked me that question a couple of days ago, and I just basically put it out there kind of like the same way.
Yeah,
I'm kind of fed up with all this kind of stuff.
I respected her honesty.
Yeah.
I respected the fact that she didn't come across and say, oh, yeah, I'm just looking for a booty call or something. She said, I'm ready to be married. I'm looking for a husband.
And if you're here playing games,
exactly,
be gone.
Yeah. And I deeply respected that. And then I really blew her mind. Because it is my belief that every person has to have what I call at least 3 non-negotiables.
See, I talk about that in my book. I say 5. I say 5.
I say at least 3. And I had 3 non-negotiables that I could not compromise. So I said, look, rather than us keep going on more dates, I said, I got to tell you, I got 3 things. And you may like this, you may not, but here's the 3 things that's non-negotiable for me. I would not date a smoker. Okay? I would not date anyone that was what I call a fundamentalist in terms of religion. Mm-hmm. And I would not date anyone that didn't believe in physical fitness. Mm. So I laid it out. These are the 3 things. Now, I said...
Well, at least good health.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I didn't say you had to be an aerobics queen or anything like that, but I believe in physical fitness. I believe in taking care of myself.
Right. Absolutely.
Because
absolutely.
I want to live to be 100. And I don't want to have a cane. I don't want to have a bunch of medication. I tell my wife all the time, I'm going to be 100 years old, I'm going to be cruising.
Oh, that's what I tell people all the time, too, because, they start talking about, well, Penny, you're going to get around to menopause. I'm like, I am not dealing with all that because I'm healthy. I am not going to be dealing with all that stuff that y'all... Okay, go ahead.
When
I digressed a moment.
when I laid out my non-negotiables, I think there were a couple of others, but those are the 3 biggies. My wife had this blank stare on her face. She's like, seriously? Did this guy just say this? And her words exactly. She said, you know what? After you gave me those non-negotiables, I knew we would just be friends. She said, because I can't believe a man throw out those non-negotiables on the first date. I said, why not? If you know exactly what you're looking for.
And I think a lot of us are, I say this all the time, I think that we're afraid that we cannot be successful in our authentic self. So that's why we find more value in pretending.
But see, I was past pretending. Way past pretending.
Yeah, but again, you're also talking about years of being able to do this. You've been doing this work.
That's why this work is so important. Because when you do this emotional work and you deal with your own stuff, then you set the ground rules.
Right.
And you set the ground rules from an authentic place.
Right, absolutely.
Not an inauthentic place.
Right.
So rather than just going through all these games and so forth, I knew what I was looking for in a relationship. I knew the qualities and values of the person that I knew that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with.
Right.
Now, when I first met her, I didn't know if she had all of those, but I knew that on that first date, if she broke any of those 3 non-negotiables, there was no need for me to go out on another date with her. And I was going to be completely honest with her about that.
Well, that's true. That's true.
And so I laid it out.
But how many of us are really willing to do that without a fear of, hey, I really do want to be with this person, and they may not accept this, or they will walk away because I put these non-negotiables out on the table?
But see, that's why you have to be comfortable and confident in who you are and what you want.
Right.
Because it's not about them at the beginning.
Well, at that point in time, it's deciding to be, instead of the low-hanging fruit, to move up the tree and say, if you want this fruit, you got to put a little sweat in and come up to this level. But Michael, I'm going to ask you, because I'm going to bring this to a close, because I certainly enjoyed this, and this is a subject that I can talk about forever and ever and ever. Sure. But there will be more series, and I just want to say to people, if they like this conversation, and they want to get more, they can visit. First I want them to make comments on the video so that we know what you do and
Guys,
do not
if
like.
you're watching this, guys, we want to hear your comments because women are always talking about
No, really.
relationships and emotion. And women, if you'll notice, if you go on social media, the overwhelming majority of it is
You're
women,
right.
Okay? Why? Because as men, we don't know how to express ourselves.
Well, that might be one of it, but I also think that men are sitting back in the crack, just trying to get everything that we're saying, because I think that they're reading that stuff, and then they come back and use it against us, especially those who have not come into their own selves and been authentic.
Sure. So,
they might be, like you said, I was the good guy anyway.
So the point here is we definitely want to engage them in this dialogue.
Yeah,
This is
I do. I
important
agree.
dialogue
I
because
agree.
what you're doing with all of your work is sharing keys and tips that support men and women
Right.
in living their best lives. That's
And it
really what
starts
you're doing.
with, and I can't, that's why I say you and I are like travelers, because if you don't have the conversation of emotions, then you're not talking at all.
Right.
So
Yes.
just in closing, I want to say, first I thank you. I appreciate you taking the time, to be here with us and to share in this moment, my first special edition video of, the journey towards self-permission. And as I said, if you like what the conversation is, please stay with us. Make comments. Visit my website at pennymurray.com, Michael's website at coachmichaeltaylor.com. And we'd love to hear from you because we really know that this conversation means everything. And there's not enough of us out here truly talking this kind of information. So I want to close with just one thing you want to end with that you want people to know.
Well, I am an irrepressible optimist.
So am I.
And so what I will throw out there is I think everyone, be optimistic. Because despite all the negative stuff we see in our society today, it is my belief there's never been a better time to be alive than right now. The real question is, are you going to be courageous enough to invest in yourself so that you can live your best life ever?
I would agree. I think this is an amazing
Absolutely.
time because there's so much around us and here's what I say, the reason why it's amazing, because there's so much unfinished work that needs to be done. There is new work to be done, but there's also unfinished work to be done that we can go and pick up because we've got another mindset. It's said that we cannot solve the problems of today with the same thinking that we had yesterday that created that mindset. So we've got new thinkers on the horizon that are current right now. Yeah. And
Changing of the guards.
Right. And we see what was really missing, or we see the gap, because we're not so caught up in it, and we've got a new way of thinking. And so that's why I said there's still work out there to be finished. Okay. So in closing, I just want to say this. Listen. We all buy into, and I bought into the fake it or till you make it kind of mentality. And I cannot begin to tell you how stressful that really is. Pretending your way through life is not the way to go. To be honest, not only is it emotionally, mentally, and physically draining, it really is financially stressful. Let me just be honest. Because, and I go back to something that Michael said earlier, is that many times the thing that we're trying to fake is already in us anyway. And if we take the moment, the time, the effort to invest in ourselves, believe in ourselves, love ourselves enough to do the work to bring that person forward, then there'll be no time for faking. You will be that authentic person. So I appreciate you being with us on this video series, and we look forward to seeing you again. Take care. Oh, you know what? And remember that your success, your brand of success, will not begin until you give yourself permission to succeed. See ya.